Hello, and thank you for tuning in to another Blockchain Gaming Week Roundup by BCG-Biz. Today is Friday, the 3rd of May. I'm your host, Jenny Jordan, and with me is co-host John Jordan. Do make sure to check out our content, news, features, interviews, all of the latest relevant stuff on blockchaingaming.biz, and follow us on Twitter, BCG-Biz, and also on LinkedIn. How are you, John?
Yeah, good.
Good. Right, so this week we had Animoca announcing they've signed a deal with the Oasis-based L2 blockchain Sakuru, I think you say. They have integrated a Sakuru verse on the Oasis games platform with a couple of games currently live on. The latest one that went live this week, Crypto Run, which I've been playing quite a bit, a mobile endless runner. Very easy to get stuck into, my type of game. Animoca has also revealed a Bitcoin Bitcoin protocol OPAL. D-Labs has announced they are moving from Polygon to Arbitrum, following I think it was Mighty Bear Games that announced last year they moved from Polygon to Arbitrum as well. Quite a few have done that move now. Obviously, there's an increasing set of game developers moving from Polygon to other ecosystems. Anyway, so D-Labs games are moving all of their games, including Rumble Racing Star, the other ones, Space Frontier and Metabolts, to Arbitrum. And we have been talking to Playmint's David and Moore on the Anonymous AA 2024 conference, anyway, annual fully on-chain games conference that was hosted last year in Istanbul. This year it was in Lisbon, and it's increased massively in numbers and in projects involved. And yeah, so it's always sort of good to get David's take on the industry and sort of to see where fully on-chain games are currently up to. Alien Worlds has a guest post on the website this week, which is interesting, about kind of on the same theme, really, because it's a fully on-chain game as well, autonomous world, and this sort of infinite opportunities in building sort of fully on-chain. You've been talking to Steve Wade on the Evergreen kind of multiverse and the various games that are being released through there. And the interesting sort of thing there is that, he's certainly not taking the easy route. And it's interesting in his kind of vision and his concept for why he is in the space. And yeah, I'm sure you'll elaborate on that later. There's been some funding rounds announced this week, a total of, I think we counted up to 16 million. Probably most notable is the Games for a Living one. There's 3.2 million they raised, so it's taken the total to 7.6. It's a Spanish-based studio, but they raised money from Supercell and Mitch Lasky. Is that right? Yeah, good. Yep. In general, sort of more larger context, crypto prices are down. Sort of raised the question: are we already sort of past the ball and moving towards a kind of more long-standing different sentiment in crypto, and obviously then also the effects on Web3 gaming that kind of tends to follow suit when crypto changes. And Lattice's fully on-chain gaming-centered protocol Redstone launched mainnet this week, and with that a couple of games are also launching on on Redstone. And as a sort of way to promote those games, Redstone is running I think it's for 2 weeks, a campaign where they basically highlight these games and various questions. So it includes Lattice's own Sky Strife, and then, like we just mentioned, Playmint's Autonomous World Downstream, ARPA Games, Dia game, and a couple of others to check out. So anyway, kick us off, John. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, but I think sort of broad sort of sector sort of KPIs. Obviously, we've gone now we're a third the way through the year, and I think you have to be a little bit sort of careful about sort of crypto prices, which obviously are sort of very volatile at the best of times. But I think as the year, if you look at the year to date, the first 3 months were pretty good. Generally, most things going up quite a lot. Bitcoin hitting an all-time high. Halving happened, and that maybe not be the reason, but that's the sort of the headline stuff. Bitcoin halving happened, and since then we've seen a lot of downward volatility. So obviously, still, historically, crypto's at a high level. I think it's, I can't remember, 2.3 billion. Let's have a look. 2.3 trillion dollars total market cap of everything. So generally seen as high, but I guess again, as we sometimes discuss, there's sort of wider uncertainty in the sort of macro markets about interest rates, which everyone thought were going to be cut and haven't been cut, partly because the US economy is still seen as very strong. So people are sort of a little bit sort of unsure about how the sort of the world economy is going to be sort of playing out. And those sort of uncertainties sort of play back into crypto, which is obviously a very volatile sort of asset class, if you believe it is an asset class. So when it comes to games, I think I wouldn't say good news, but I think the positive news is that we've started to see a lot of these sort of token sort of launches. I think we'll start to see them slow down because we've had an awful lot this year. There's an awful lot. If we continue this sort of very positive sort of bull market run, which we may end up back in, who knows? But there are just basically a lot of all projects basically were launching tokens. I mean, probably a handful not, but this was sort of built up demand for people who last year, 2023, had a token and couldn't launch it because market conditions weren't good enough. So there's a whole sort of pent up demand of those people sort of getting their tokens out. And then obviously, when you're in a bull market, lots of new projects decide they're going to announce themselves and they're going to launch a token. So I don't think we've seen any sort of really terrible examples, but we've seen an increasing number of what I would call scammy examples, and whether those are just inexperienced teams not really understanding what they're doing, or whether those are people actually out to sort of short-term benefit themselves and sort of don't really care whose money they take in the short term. I'll leave that for their own consciences to decide. But we've had a lot of tokens launched, and pretty much all of the new tokens that have launched have not done well now. So that in a sense is good, because that means you can't just sort of rock up to a sort of token launch pad and launch your token, and all the insiders make money, and because there's loads of retail sort of smucks to buy the token. I genuinely do think actually that is good. I think the concern would have been that increasingly less sort of high quality projects release tokens, and it sort of just becomes a sort of total sort of farce, really. So I think it's good, even if the sort of bull sort of market continues. I think it's good that there's sort of we're going to see less of that. I mean, there's still quite a lot of tokens. They're going through this process. I mean, the big one at the moment is the Mochaverse, the Mochaverse's Mocha token. So that's Mocha's sort of quite a big sort of project from Animoca brands. Not quite clear, really, I would say, to me, maybe to anyone, what the Mocha token is quite going to be used for, given that there's no game. I mean, games might integrate it, but there's no Mochaverse by its sort of Raison d'etre is sort of like a fairly loose sort of network of affiliated sort of projects. So quite what that token will be I don't know. Obviously very different to launching an L2 token or an L1 token. So we'll sort of see how that plays out. But generally I sort of think that is not the worst thing that could have happened. You mentioned investment, so there are, again, that sort of linked to market sentiment, and quite a few of those sort of funding announcements that are being made are to do with token. So either sort of VCs buying tokens at a reduced price, before they go live, or people investing in companies to get tokens at a later stage. So but even within the fact that money is still being raised, it's actually not much of an improvement on last year. Actually, down on last year. I
But
think
so as you've pointed out, in your Substack this week, the sort of those funding rounds tend to be quite small amounts compared to those sort of 30 million, 80 million, 100 plus million sort of thing. And you have I think you have 30 investors into some of these rounds, which makes it sort of which one is, there's no clear sort of lead investor. It's shared across many. Are there any other dangers with that sort of structure of investment rounds?
Well, I think it shows a lack of sort of liquidity in terms of investors. So, I don't think we'll go back to late 2021, first half of 2022 were just ridiculous. Now you look back and think those were ridiculous levels of investment going in. But when you have like $1 billion going into a sector in a quarter, that's not being raised by crypto VC funds or retail crypto. That's sort of the big A16Z, even bigger than those, like private equity funds. These are very, very large scale institutional funds who for some reason got really into blockchain and were funding OpenSea and SoRare and Forte. None of which have done very well since those massive funding rounds that they got. So we're definitely not back to that level. I don't think we will really come back to that level. But even in the middle, where you sort of have traditional VC companies or game-focused VC companies, and those sort of people, are generally better funded than the crypto VC people. Not in every case, but generally. And those are more traditional companies, so they would sort of do due diligence and reference calls and spend the legal money to lead the round, which basically means you're writing the legal contract and getting it all checked, and that's expensive. Those people will come in with like $5, $10, $15 million maybe to into rounds, and the rounds we're sort of seeing now are $5 million, which is, as you say, often cobbled together from dozens often of different individuals. So no one's really having commitment to go, right, I'll put $2 million into a $5 million round. Maybe you get $1 million from someone, then everyone else is putting in like $250,000 or something like that.
That's one of the reasons we're seeing these kind of announcements where total funding now is 12 million. We only raised about 1.2 in the last, but that sounds a bit little, so we're going out with the total amount instead raised.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely sort of the case. Obviously, people who are running startups is really difficult. We shouldn't sort of underestimate that. I sort of, talked to a lot of these people, and you sort of, you sort of, any way you can sort of get through the situation, you get through the situation. So, it's very easy to be on the outside, sort of pointing fingers at these sort of people. But the bottom line is, on the funding side at least, it's a bit better than it was in the summer last year, but it's not actually really that much better. And a lot of it is being based on the fact that people can buy tokens for $1, sell them immediately for $3. That's gone or going away at least a little bit. And I think in the bottom line is still, as we sort of look at in the big blockchain game list, which you sort of curate, there are 1,000 blockchain games out there. There's, if you think at the most there's a borderline, I would say there's like 1 million, maybe 2 million people playing these sort of games at some level, and you've got 1,000 games. I mean, clearly, even not looking at the quality of these games, most of which is not very good. There is not a sort of mass audience that, if you took the blockchain out of it, that investors would go in and go, all these games are growing like gangbusters. We've got to invest in here because this is where all the money's going to be made in 10 years' time. That may be the case, but we're definitely not seeing it at the moment, with the exception of Pixels, which we also looked at this month. And so Pixels, and it's kind of funny that I did a tweet and basically said, Pixels is the one sort of blockchain game, and everything else is sort of insignificant in comparison, which is true. Pixels is approaching 900,000 daily active unique wallets. Obviously, a bunch of bots, but 200,000 people paying $10 a month to get the VIP membership. So that's a pretty clear indicator of at least there's 200,000 people playing that game. So probably you could say probably half of the people playing blockchain games at the moment are playing Pixels, and there's really not a lot else around that at the moment.
So how far off is that from Axie Infinity's heydays, like in terms of daily active users? Is it?
Yeah, so Axie Infinity peaked at 1.1 million daily active unique wallets on one day. That was literally its 1 day peak. Yeah, no, so it's quite. If you look at the graph, it goes all the way up like a rocket ship. It hits its peak and then literally comes pretty much down at the same velocity. It's quite striking. So, you know, I was going to say obviously that could happen for Pixels. I don't think that would happen for Pixels, because it doesn't have a play to earn mechanic. So there's a token in there, but you sort of have to pay the $10 a month to sort of extract it, and you don't have that earning potential like you had with Active, where you just rock in and make a couple of dollars. You know, with Pixels, it's much more in depth. It's not a play to earn game in the sense that we saw in 2021, 2022 with play to earn games. The economy is much better balanced. So I think, you know, in all likelihood, Pixels will break that Axie peak of 1.1 million at some point this year, probably in the fairly next few couple of months. Obviously, with all growth, at some point you sort of plateau out and maybe you go down a little bit, or, you know, there are bots in there. They're very open with that. So if you took sort of all the bots out straight away, it would sort of come down. But I guess the wider question is, doesn't really matter what Pixel's doing. There's nothing else over like 100,000 daily active unique wallets. So there is that sort of big gap between the one game that's doing really well and everything else.
Yeah, cool. So in Animoca news, they announced this Bitcoin protocol OPAL, which has already been integrated in their Wise's MMOG Life Beyond, isn't it? They announced like September last year, didn't they, that they were gonna build like a Bitcoin economy, sort of underpinning their game. What do you make of that news?
Yeah, I don't know. Personally, I'm not a big fan of doing stuff on Bitcoin, but I guess it's just historically much more Ethereum focused. I mean, clearly Bitcoin is going through. You know, there is a lot of, over the last sort of over a year really. You know, you've seen this functionality being added to Bitcoin, so inscriptions. So you're actually sort of writing NFTs into, making them sort of fully on chain. You're writing them into the actual sort of code, writing them into the actual block space. And people went really mad for those, and some of those are, you know. Some of the blockchain art collectors particularly really love that sort of model. And now we have, there's always been people trying to build on top of Bitcoin in different ways, stacks and various other things. Never really taken off, and now it sort of has. And then this is the idea of runes, which is a sort of way of doing tokens, sort of like ERC tokens on Ethereum. So to that degree, Animoca is playing into that. I was just always surprised, really, that Life Beyond decided to go on Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin's, you know, fine. Clearly, it works as a store of value. You could argue it works as a payment method on the Lightning method, on the Lightning network. So there is some sort of something there you could build on. But the fact that there are, you know, a handful of games doing that, to me, sort of suggests that that's just not. One, I think it's technically much harder than other blockchains, because Bitcoin's not designed to do that, and I'm not sure. I just sort of think the status around Bitcoin is you buy it and then you hold it. You know, it's not, if this is like a thing that's gonna, you know, keep going up in value, then why would I be spending it? I mean, I think that's sort of the disconnect you sort of have there with Bitcoin, whereas, you know. You could argue that for any blockchain, I suppose, but for ETH, I think it's sort of people are sort of have spent a lot of ETH on gas in the way that you sort of don't quite in Bitcoin. So they're sort of more used to it, and then obviously with other L2s or in-game tokens, they're much more a payment method in the way that Bitcoin really has never been. So I think it sort of plays. I mean, I'm sure they've done it for the sort of interesting technical reasons, but I'm a little unconvinced, really. And I think in general, I would say that Animoca historically has always operated, and in fact, that, you know, this is what sort of Yat would say, or Robbie would say, is, you know, we can't predict the future, so we're basically going to, you know, make lots of bets across the board, on the roulette wheel. You know, Animoca's putting their chips all over the place. You know, they're not going, right, we're going to go for red 16 and we're all in on that. So, you know, historically they've done, you know, what looks like very odd deals with really odd blockchains and nothing ever happened. But from their point of view, it's like, well, we didn't know nothing was going to happen here. So Bitcoin's obviously some people are doing it. One of our companies, one of our subsidiaries is already doing Bitcoin. So let's sort of widen it out and see if anyone else wants to do it. So
well, it's kind of general good investment advice, isn't it? To spread out.
Well, we don't want to go down that. I mean, so the issue is if you sort of make little bets in everything, then obviously you'll have made a little bet in something to do really well, and the things that go bust, you've only made a little bet. But if you obviously obviously no one would know this, but if you basically took all your money and put it on Apple in 1980 or Facebook in whenever, obviously that's where you make the money is actually doing fewer bigger bets. And when you get into the VC world, this is very much something that everyone looks at is, the things you want to do is not, you don't do really well by investing in the best companies. You do really well by investing a lot in the best companies. So, and that becomes risk reward. So, Animoca, I think to be fair to them, they are, it's a much easier thought process just to go, we're not going to worry too much about which is the winners, which is the losers. We just, Animoca thinks blockchain is brilliant, and it's not going to invest outside blockchain. It's going to, all its investments are in blockchain, but it's not going to be too filtered within that. Mm-hmm. Whereas other people would be, I'm going to, and probably my view personally, I think Animoca would have done much better to invest for every 3 times more in 3 times less companies, sort of thing. But anyway, that's a discussion for another time.
Good. I shall admit that I have not had a lot of time recently to play a lot of games. I have been playing Crypto Run, like I said. I've picked up NFL Rivals again, and I do play Pirate Nation regularly, but apart from that, not much. What are you playing, John, at the moment?
What am I playing? So the usual ones. So Night Crows every day, 9 Chronicles every day, a bit of NFL Rivals. So Axie Infinity Homeland has just come off its what's it called? Gathering events. That's literally finishing today. So I was playing quite a lot of that. I don't think I've made an enormous amount of rewards from that, but a little bit, I think. So that'll be interesting to see. Yeah, Pirate Nation again. So play that every day. What else? We've got Alien Worlds, Craft World.
How far away? What's it called?
Yes, Serum City. Yeah, every day. So quite a lot.
Good.
What else am I looking forward to? I've got the new Doctor Who game is coming out, so I look forward to that.
Say that again.
The new Doctor Who game.
Oh yeah.
Trading card game. So that's actually out on mobile in some countries, but not in the UK. But the PC version is out. So I was having a chat with them this week, so that's interesting. Some stuff. Actually, we should just mention Immutable sort of gearing up finally, sort of slowly. The main quest is sort of finally now going. Some stuff's going live there. So it's a game there called Desperados. I was going to check out, and Guild of Guardians actually goes live. Where are we?
12 days.
2 weeks. Yeah. 2 weeks.
Yeah.
There's always plenty of games, aren't there? There's always more games.
News. We got the imaginary ones, and they have a mobile endless runner as well. But Bubble Rangers that hits 2 million downloads this week. So I'm not sure what blockchain integration is there yet, but
nothing.
That's an immutable game as well. So anyway, on that note, we're going to finish off, and thank you very much for listening in, and we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.